The first time I encountered Julie's work was in her third and most recent collection, Monkey Ranch, for which she won the Governor General's Award. And when I opened this book and started to read, I suddenly felt as if I hadn't picked up the book at all. I felt like I had picked up the telephone and it was Julie calling me to chat. She was telling me about her family, about her trips to the mall and the zoo, about watching TV, and about all these startling observations she'd made along the way. Now, I don't know Julie, so it'd be rather odd to get a telephone call from her, but that is how her poems work. They speak to you directly and intimately. They are somehow familiar, and yet they show you the shocking, the intensely strange, and the beautiful that can go unnoticed if no one stops to register them. Julie registers them. Reading her work actually reminds me of being in the grocery store and filling my grocery cart full of groceries, only to look down and see that a handgun and a few grenades have slipped in there. It is also familiar, yet terribly strange. I went to see an exhibition of work by the East Coast painter Mary Pratt this past week in Kleinburg at the McMichael Gallery. And it was mentioned in the show that Pratt was often inspired to paint scenes of ordinary domestic life, when a certain light infused them with something special, made them extraordinary. And I think Julie does that too. She waits for just that light. She captures the scene when the view is just right. I once read in an interview that Julie did with the Walrus that due to various factors in her life, such as being born to American parents in Montreal, living as an Anglophone in Quebec, and now living as a Canadian in America, that she's always felt positioned as an outsider looking in on society. And I think that when reading her work, this comes across with wondrous and often hilarious effect. Her poems can make me laugh out loud. She is the recipient of numerous awards and nominations. Her second collection, The Woman Downstairs, was co-winner of the A.M. Klein Award for Poetry. And as I mentioned before, Monkey Ranch won her the Governor General's Award. She has also twice been nominated for the Pushcart Prize. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce Julie.
Must be some other Julie Bruck. Thank you so much. That was lovely. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Poetry London. Thank you to the library. Thank you to everybody. It's been a lovely, warm arrival. I'm going to pour some water. I'm going to read mostly from Monkey Ranch and mix it up a little bit with some newer work as well. I read at Western this afternoon, and it occurred to me at the end of the reading that I hadn't read any monkey poems in the entire reading, so I thought tonight I'd start with the monkey poem. This morning, after an execution in San Quentin, my husband said he felt human again after days of stomach flu, made himself French toast, then lay down again to be sure. I took our daughter to the zoo, where she stood on small flowered legs, transfixed by the drone of the howler monkey, a sound more wretched than howl. Singing monkey, my girl says. She is well rested. We all are. As we slept, cold spring air arrived, blown from the bay where San Quentin casts its sharp light. Tonight, my girl will tell her father, a man restored, even grateful for a day, about what she saw in the raised cage. Monkey singing, she will tell him, and later tell every corner of her cool, dark room, until the crib springs ease because she's run out of joy and fallen asleep on her knees. So I felt somewhat honored to get a wallop of the last winter weather in Montreal last weekend. I felt like, I was getting my Canadian by proxy experience, or at least, a little iota of it. And this is definitely a winter poem, Montreal winter. The Trick. Blinking in the half-light, almost bright after the school's dim corridors, we passed the line of poplars, tall black sentries at the outer limits of the playfield. Streetlights flicked on, one at a time, new snow coming down heavy and wet. We ran the hill and slid, our boots etching serpentines on the snowy sidewalk. A big boulevard to cross, then the empty lot whose Scotch pines knelt beneath the snow's accumulation, blue in this light, before the final dangerous curve. We always sensed them, but were never prepared for the 3 or 4 boys crouched between the blind flanks of houses, coiled to grab our hats and run with impossible suddenness, school bags slung like ammo belts across their 8-year-old chests. We jammed the hats our mothers bought deep in our pockets like charms, anything to deflect their rough attentions, though I knew it meant they liked us. I had 2 brothers and understood to love meant to torment. A schoolmate's mother who sang in a barbershop quartet had already hung herself at home. Another child's father would soon seal his garage door with duct tape and start the family car. She left no note. His would say he loved them all. I thought the trick was to sidestep even the smallest emergencies, disappear in our blue or gray duffel coats, hats clamped in our wet fists, to will them by like fire engines when the fire is elsewhere and much more urgent, until they've blown past, their boisterous voices receding, their 3 or 4 Canadiens jackets drawing so close to the vanishing point you could hide them by holding up a thumb. We walk home quietly in the softly falling snow, small monks who remained, to all appearances, untouched. So you might get a telephone call from me, but you would never get through to me if you called. And this poem will be by way of explanation. It's not because I don't like you either. Why I don't pick up the phone. Because it's the school nurse saying one child has written on another child, and the ink washed off, but the writing remains. We can't read it, but you'd better get down here right now and do something. Because someone is in a locked ward for their own protection, meaning someone else had to commit them, and now walks around with a heart like a hammered anvil. Or another has fallen, and even though you're next of kin, you're too far away to catch or comfort. I do not lift the headset, sift instead what's coming as the tide sorts its affairs. What washes up should bear signs of who it carries, like an eyelash stuck to the edge of a stamp. And no, smartass, I don't mean caller ID. If I can't have the living glance of the guy from Western Union when he hands over the onion skin, just give me 2 minutes more at the window. Kids from the daycare returning to their ark, clinging to their red rope like little shipwreck survivors. Before I pick up and let the world name names. So the world does have a tendency to name names. A school night in February. In his attic bedroom, a teenage boy watches his lava lamp's colors implode. Downstairs, His mother has burned her wrist on the oven rack. She's tired, distracted by an earlier incident to which we are not privy, as she is not privy to the basement location behind the furnace under a tarp, where her son has stored the rifle he will carry to school by a torn hockey bag and lift with a steady hand, a witness will say, from under his grandfather's old black coat, sleet still clinging to the shoulders. Tomorrow night, all night, in tidy, heavily mortgaged homes like this one, lamps will cast angled windows on the worn suburban snow 60 miles west of Chicago. Seen from a distance, say a moving train, it will appear that every other house has left lights on for a weary traveler. Someone expected much earlier, someone who must have been inexplicably delayed. Okay, something a little lighter.
Yeah.
As a parent of a teenager, I really look forward to coming back to Canada because I can renew my endless adolescence, which I'm not allowed to renew at home. Yeah, so note the past tense in this poem and you can come to your own conclusions. It's funny that you come back to Canada and behave badly. This doesn't make sense. Smoke. It never took much to start the prowl. A few quarters in my pocketed fist, scanning for blue-haloed strangers gathered under the overhangs. Such awkward transactions. Some resisted the money. "Oh no," said that awfully cheerful woman outside her AA meeting. "Pay it forward." Which I think about as her camel hit my bloodstream, and I'd stagger a little past the Korean barbecue, the tattoo parlor, walking to work in flames. Sometimes I tried to push money on the generous, insisted they'd need it for a parking meter, or, did I really say this, a payphone. Once outside Humanities, a student from Beijing waved my coins aside, proudly offered his Chinese cigarettes. I took one from his golden pack with a great wall on it and thanked him for his kindness. Crossed the verdant campus, inhaling until the cement bunker of the Harney Science Building became the Imperial Hall of the late Qin Dynasty. And I was walking to work with all the other terracotta soldiers, no two alike, clouds curling from our immortal mouths. This is a short, nasty little poem. Oh, wait a second. Never mind. The short and nasty's coming later. I was telling the kids this afternoon that I was explaining, that you guys must know Mary Oliver, a lot of you, and probably admire Mary Oliver. I'm not Mary Oliver, as you will shortly see. God knows I try. The change. So I've done what my body was made for. My 8-year-old is all legs, careening down the basketball court. And I do acknowledge the pulls and pushes of tides, moons, of love and such, even if I stop short at crystals and meet the plankton music. My husband hums in the house. My daughter sings while she plays. I'm hunched at the kitchen table, jaw clenched, staring down a blank grocery list, when that stringy mouse, the one who holds keys to this place, scrabbles across the awful linoleum for the first time today, and my shriek is so sudden and muscular and primal, I know I've pulled something in my neck. If this new tin cat does its job, I swear, I'll carry the jumpy, humane contraption straight to the park in my bathrobe. Calmly raise the metal lid and let the mouse go with a kind, steady hand. I'll be better than I am. Pretend to love this creature I'd rather drown. What does it mean to love the life we've been given? I, of course, am part of the sandwich generation that many people my age are, with older parents and kids sort of dealing with developments on both ends. But there was a time about 10 years ago where my parents had their second adolescence, and I had a 4-year-old. And it was a very interesting time. So this was written in the aftermath of that. And it takes place in 3 places. It's, the speaker is watching something happen in Montreal on television from California, and there's a phone call from British Columbia. Live news feed. I am watching my mother's neighborhood explode on live TV when Ruth, my father's girlfriend, calls her from her renovated kitchen, reports she is baking an apple cake. On screen, one more disaffected youth in a trench coat, and bodies, trauma units filling up fast with the dead and injured. My father is 92. She is 10 years younger. They live in her BC apple orchard after a 25-year affair, which somehow slipped under everyone's radar, lasting half my parents' marriage. Are you watching the news, I ask? Yes, she says, terrible, isn't it? If I'd been able to speak, I would have said, yes, Ruth, I haven't reached my mother, perhaps she's dead. But my father needs to talk about an insight he's gleaned from a Steinbeck novel on tape. I ask whether he's seen the news. Awful, isn't it, he says, and returns to East of Eden. It is already dark in Montreal. Blue police lights bounce on wet streets and buildings I knew better than my own hand, everything cordoned with yellow crime tape. Once I thought we'd all driven my father away. Conversation at the family table was fast, digression the rule. He'd often dozed off by dessert. Guns drawn, a SWAT team flanks the door to my mother's building. My father wraps up Steinbeck, inquires after my health, said their kitchen smells good. Ruth took those apples from the neighbor's orchard. She swears stolen apples have more flavor. So the nasty little poem I promised is here. It's called A Marriage. His paintings were small, suggestions of houses, pinpricks of green for trees. She'd set her glass down, say, paint like you're blind, for memory and passion. 2 words he especially didn't care for. She'd say, paint like you're on fire. But their house was already burning, and he was going blind and deaf. So he'd carry the painting back down to the basement, resume with his thinnest sable brush. He would never touch her the way she wanted, though she kept asking him to, like this, in front of everybody. There seems to be a hand theme going on tonight. I keep wanting to do this. This is called The Good Hand. This is there's a bunch of these that are really new. So if I fall down, go boom, you'll know why. The Good Hand. Often, with no warning, my left hand becomes a claw, like a drawstrings being pulled from forearm to fingers. I have to press the hand flat, hard against a desk, the nearest book, to restore the head's dominion. Yes, it hurts, but it ends, and I know how to end it. So why, 2/3 of the way through a life, this flood of profanities, stamping of feet, such furious bargaining before I'll pry my own fingers apart? It never leaves, this frantic need for someone to arrive, for surer hands to unwind us, as we were first uncurled, then laid out to our full lengths to be measured and proclaimed. Once we were swaddled so we wouldn't revert to the fiddleheads we'd been when they pulled us from the waters. Not this brittle leaf, not this hand. We were beheld. Okay, now for something completely lighter. This poem owes a little bit of a debt to the film version of Once with Glenn Hansard and Margaret Petrovna. So you might recognize the verb to hoover, or hoovering, as it were. Once, I wanted a particular man to wake and touch me so badly, I vacuumed the bedroom while he slept. The harder I hoovered, the deeper I wanted him. The more I hoovered, the deeper his sleep. The more he slept, the deeper my wanting. It had yet to occur to me that a man who sleeps while being hoovered is not a wanting man. It took much hoovering to drown out that small complication, which made me want and hoover for another desolate pre-dawn hour, a man who did not want nor wake. One of the kids this afternoon, students I should say, young people, asked me what my favorite poem was of all the poems I'd ever written, and it just threw me into a tizzy of, I haven't the faintest idea. But I did say that I always feel that the thing I've written most recently is the best, until I live with it for a while and realize that it's absolutely impossible and will take 2 years to finish. So I said, why don't I get bold and pull out one of those and read it to you, and you can tell me what it's about, because I don't know yet. And so I did. I just like reading this because it's fun to read, so I hope you'll bear with me. It's called Two Fish. Say you have 2 goldfish, pet store fishlets, bought for 25 cents each, carried home in a plastic bag, and nurtured for years. Let's say you clean the tank, place each fish in its own half-filled mason jar, each a bit small for large fish, but adequate for the short time it should take to balance the tank's pH. Suppose you put the jars on a very high shelf, then forget they're there for months, until most of the water has evaporated, until what's left of their fish shapes surrenders to the dictates of the jars, becoming 2 squat ciphers of twisted life. Let's say that's how you find them, your heart swelling with shame, and quickly, with shaking hands, pour them back into the tank. Which is more alarming? The fish who sinks to the bottom, distorted as in a funhouse mirror, one eye bulging to the size of its chest, fins extruding from the wrong places, who squats there staring out steady as a barrel? Or the one who reconstitutes itself as a sponge takes on tap water, who swims off briskly, picking up and dropping bits of gravel with its fish lips, foraging with little clicks as it always did before? Which? The hideously damaged one, or the one who moves on as if this is what it was, this is what it always meant to be entrusted to your care? Which fish? So I'll lighten up. I'll just finish with a poem, the first poem from my second book, The End of Travel, which is a short one. It's called Sex Next Door. It's rare, slow as a creaking of oars. And she is so frail and short of breath on the street, the stairs, tiny, Lilliputian. One wonders how they do it. So, wakened by the shiftings of their bed, nudging our shared wall as a boat rubs its pilings, I wanted to continue before her awful, hollow coughing fit begins. And when they have to stop, always, until it passes, let us praise that resumed rhythm, no more than a twitch, really, of our common floorboards, and how he's waited for her before pushing off in their rusted vessel, bailing when they have to, but moving out anyway across the black water. Thank you very much.